And good morning, all you wonderful people. Thank you for coming along. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. And hello to the chat. Who do we have? Who do we have? Austin, Michael, Stephen, Henrik. Henrik, welcome. Family plans, Sion. No, Sion, I have not moved back to the home office. And yes, I know, I need to update my my generic thumbnail. I've been using that one for so many years. It almost looks the same. It's like this part of my lab has just been transplanted from the other place. Gerald, Stephen, did I say Stephen earlier? I can't remember. Jane, g'day. So Jane is Imogen, maybe? I'm not sure. It's someone who's logged in from a different account. Okay, nested parentheses. I know, nested parentheses. Russell, Sharky, Dion, Design It, Simon, Tourist. Lots of people in the chat today. Why am I... Yeah, wake up, Pete. I don't know why I am sounding so perky right now. I think it's because I'm trying to convince myself to have energy, because I am actually feeling smashed. Yesterday, my striking coach decided it would be a good day to do a really high intensity session. So he pretty much put my heart rate at the red line and kept it there. Love you, Tony. But it was tough, really tough. Got to the end of the session and I could barely walk. In fact, I think I was too tired to get off the mat, so I just stayed there and then did a jiu-jitsu class as well. And my jiu-jitsu instructor decided that was a good day to also do a high-intensity session. So we had continuous 5-minute rounds with 15-second break between each round just to swap opponent. And yeah, I was smashed. I'm trying to walk. I don't think I could walk a straight line to the door leaving yesterday. So, Austin says, I've been wired all day getting tasks and projects done left and right. It would be nice to have a break and watch the stream. So, yes, I know. You've got that. You've got into that flow. It's so good when you're in that mode. When the brain gets the focus happening and you end up in that flow state, it's when we say thank you for neurodiversity. Sometimes it's a superpower. Peter says, hey Austin, drop on over here and do tasks and stuff for me. Austin, where are you, Austin? I can't remember what country you're in. Are you in Canada? I don't remember. I think so, yeah. Johan, hey, thanks for coming along. Yeah. Yes, Austin says it can be, but in the past, in the past, in the flow state where I could go 48 hours but really end up paying for it long term, that's what is the, that's the difficulty now. Yeah. I can't do the, I can't do those continuous runs where I just work like day, night, day with zero break. You know, do 60 hours straight without a break. Used to do that, no problem at all. Enthusiast. Oh, that's a really cool name. Enthusiast Videos. Hi from Slovenia. Welcome, Enthusiast. Now, Peter says John's an old man. Yes, that's true. I am no longer 19. Simon. Oh, yes. Okay. A couple of live streams ago, Simon, you put a couple of comments in here which I didn't even see in the chat until after the live stream was over and someone else pointed them out to me. So, Simon just said in the chat, starting chemotherapy on the 31st of January, and in the previous chat, I can't remember the wording, but you said something along the lines of you may not be able to be here for any live streams. So it sounds like you're facing some really serious issues, and my heart goes out to you. I really hope that the chemo isn't too rough on you, and that it is effective. So yeah, we're all behind you, Simon. No, don't apologise. Simon just said, sorry to butt in. No, this is, yeah, obviously this is a huge life event / crisis that you're dealing with, and, you know, I don't really know what to say. But just know that there are people who care about you, and we want you to come out of this healthy and well. So yeah, as Enthusiast says, Simon, we stand for you all. Yeah. And as Austin says, best of luck, Simon. Yeah. Okay, I don't know if you want to share any more about your situation. If you feel like it, go for it. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to share anything that you don't feel comfortable with. But if you do want to talk to people, either here, this is kind of a very public sort of place, but if you wanted to chat to people, there is the Discord chat as well. In fact, what I'm going to do is put the URL for the Discord invitation in the chat, and not just for Simon, for anyone. So the Discord has a bit over 2,000 members in it at the moment, and lots and lots of subtopics talking about different things, about tech issues, but also people talking about personal issues. And there are things like Pete's meme channel, where he just posts funny things. And yes, Pete just said, reminds me I found some new memes to post to the Discord. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, if you do need someone to chat to, you can jump on Discord and talk to me there, or whoever else. Not that I'm necessarily going to be a huge help in the situation, but the offer is open. George said, is this the pizza party? It really should be. I had pizza 2 nights ago, actually. First time for a little while. Austin asked, how are the KO machines? The KOs. There has been progress. There's actually been good progress. I haven't really talked about that recently, but you may recall that where the status of those machines was last time I talked about it, probably a few weeks ago, I was having lots of trouble with what I was describing was a communications problem. And so for those who don't know the background, what Austin is talking about there is some time ago, an embarrassingly long time ago, I bought 3 KO pick and place machines to set up here in the Super Lab. In fact, it was the trigger, it was one of the major triggers for renting this factory and moving from the back of my garage into this factory space, was to build the clean room and set up a production facility here. So I bought these 3 KO pick and place machines with the goal of running them on OpenPNP, because they had already been modified by the previous owner, and I didn't have the original factory controllers with them. One of them is in an unmodified state, but I didn't have the disk with the correct calibration values for it, so I couldn't run it on the Windows-based software, the original software, reliably. The calibration was all off. So my goal was to convert them over to run on OpenPNP, and I've been almost successful in that. So I now have, based on some Python code written by the previous owner of the machines, so he'd already written a Python-based control system. I've now written a C-based control system which runs on an ESP32 and provides a USB interface to the machine with a G-code front end on it, so I can talk to it out of OpenPNP. And where I got to, as of a couple of weeks ago, is I could do all of the operations necessary on the machine. So X, Y moves, rotational moves on the nozzles, on all 4 nozzles, Z movements on all 4 nozzles. I could advance feeders, I could adjust the conveyor belt width, I could start and stop the conveyor belt, I could load a board and lock it in place, unload a board and take it to the exit location. Basically all the things that are necessary, all of the individual things that are necessary to control the machines and make them do what I want. But there was a problem. The problem was that when I ran a batch job, like putting down a whole series of parts in a row, it would fail after a certain period of time, and the time would vary. It wasn't consistent. So I had a test job with a row of 20 resistors all in a line, and all it would do is try to put down 20 resistors. Sometimes it would get through all 20 perfectly. Actually, I think it was 18. Sometimes it would fail on the 4th, sometimes on the 7th, that sort of thing. So it wasn't deterministic. I couldn't say this particular command is causing a failure, but the machine would get into a state where it would return a message that was not in the command set that I was aware of. Excuse me. And that had me bashing my head against the wall for a long time. But turns out the problem was that I was not returning the Z-axis to its fully home position before attempting a horizontal move. And the reason behind it is more complicated than you would think. But the good news is that's now been figured out, and I can now reliably run the machines. So I can load a job in OpenPNP and it'll put down every part and get to the end, 0 comms errors. So that's a big relief. So now I'm at the stage where it's just a matter of tuning. It's a matter of adjusting things like the exact Z location to get the parts placed on the board without either smacking into the board too hard or trying to drop the part when it's above the board, and all of those little tuning things that have to be done. And I've run a couple of boards through one of the machines and it put down all of the parts, but the alignments were a bit off. Typical. What I'm at now is the typical commissioning type problems. It's not so much the can we make it work at all problem. So I'm really relieved to be past that hurdle, and I can now see, because for a while I've been in that state of mind where I've been thinking, is this even feasible? Have I wasted all of this money and effort and time? Would I be better off, throwing in the towel and selling the machines or something, buy another machine that's in a ready to go state? But now that I'm past this hurdle, I'm feeling much more positive. It feels like now I can go ahead with building out the clean room and setting things up and have some confidence that what's going to come out is actually going to be functional. I've got to put a mental pin in reflow ovens because Sion is here, and I'm sure there are other people here with opinions on reflow ovens. And I've just been looking at the RFM 630 from KO, which is shockingly cheap. I was really surprised when I talked to my contact at KO about it. Anyway, I'll get back to reflow ovens. This is the thing, chasing a squirrel. Okay, back to, where was I? I was talking about pick and place machines. Sorry, I keep looking that way because I can sit here and look through the glass and see the pick and place machines. And I'm really excited about the idea of finishing building out this clean room. And the way the lab is laid out like this, this really is a dream come true, because I can sit here, where I'm looking at you right now, I'm looking at a camera sitting directly above the center of my main monitor and in between the two upper monitors. So this is like the control location. And from here I've got my computer and everything laid out in front of me. My workbench with all of my test gear is just to my right, and just to my left is a big glass wall with a view straight through into where the cleanish room is going to be, and I can see all the pick and place machines and the gear sitting there. So from here I should be able to run the machines, to some extent at least. Droid cam, John O'Cam, yes I know you need some, okay, you need some way of seeing what I see. I need an implanted camera, or what I need to do is get back to setting this up, the head-mounted camera, streaming via Wi-Fi, so that I can walk around and you can just see what I see. Okay, now the Sion said, what model reflow from KO? The RFM 630. And Sion, I know you have strong opinions about reflow ovens. Mitchell says it's on page 37,475 of the to-do list book. That's right. I have a to-do spreadsheet. There are many, many rows. Okay, now there is some interesting discussion going on here in the chat about ESP32 models, and I would like to get to that, but I will try not to. RFM 630 reflow oven. I'm going to put some information up on the screen. Convection reflow oven. This one. It'll be visible to you in just a jiffy. 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, so KO, I cannot overstate how impressed I am with KO as a company to deal with. They are incredibly responsive, and any time that I have ever had a question, they have answered it immediately and in great detail, and followed up with, and they even know, oh, that's the, why does it say RF 430 there and RF 630 up there? I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is the one. So, and KO know that I have never bought anything from them. They know that I'm using their pick and place machines, but I got them secondhand. So what that gives me is some degree of confidence that as a supplier, they're a good company to deal with. So kosmt.eu, that's the European one. Maybe it's different voltage options. I don't know. Anyway, oh, Iggy, you're here. G'day. And Jane is here, the real Jane. Cool. And Dentistries is here too. Oh yeah, so Josh says, not sure if it's of interest to anyone, but I'm building a 3-axis CNC router right now. I may record some of my efforts, but happy to publish plans when completed. That would be very interesting. And my friend Steve, as in Plasma Steve, not little, not the little fairy Steve, I am sure would be very interested in that as well, because that is one of his passions, is building CNC machines. Oh, no, it must be a different model then. So Sion said, you know that's 3-phase and 3.5 meters long. This one, that's the, which model? KO reflow oven. Let's just go for a, not that one. 330 model, RF3, 530. There's a, yeah, I'm probably telling you the wrong model. There's one that, trust all the way, Thanksgiving. I love Chinese slogans. They're so cool. Product, SMT solution. Maybe that'll get us to where we want to be. Come on, come on. Is it responding? Check out this oven. 4.6 meters long, 8 heating zones. No, there's a little one, which is about 1.8 meters long, 1.7 meters long. The 430. Oh no, I think it might be this one. The RF 430. There. Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, there was one that I was really surprised by. Yeah, 3-phase as well. Yeah, that's fine. I've got 3-phase power here. It's I will see if I can find specifically which model it is. Sorry, I'm just thinking about how I'm going to actually find this, because, which might sound like a silly question, but I've got a whole lot of hidden things so that they don't pop up on the screen because I've got private stuff on my computer. Okay, KO. I just had to think about how to open it without it appearing on that. Here we go. All right, so Jenny said it's a 530. Oh yeah, the KO RF 530. Let's find that one. So it's a 5 zone. Oh, this is on made in China, but if we go to where is it? KOSMT. I was looking for their direct page. There is a oh no, stuff it. This will do. Let's just look at the listing on Made in China. Oh look, it's from $1 to $100. That price is not misleading at all. So this is how long is this one? It's 3 zones. 3 zones up, 2 zones down. 11 kilowatts. Length is 1700, so it's quite compact, and it's 3-phase. So it's kind of primitive. It's not exactly a. It's not a super high-tech, top of the range reflow oven. That's for sure. It's a basic thing. But this is the thing. This landed and like shipped to Melbourne is somewhere in the region of 2,500 Australian dollars, which is kind of bonkers for what it is. Like if I went for something like an IN6, it'd be double that at least. So yeah, for what it is, that's not bad, Austin says. Sion said, do I ever do double-sided boards? Can't do them on a mesh conveyor. No, I have in the past, but I try to avoid it. I really hate doing double-sided boards. They're just such a pain. And the thing is that I am not going to be doing 100% of the manufacturing here. I'm still maintaining the relationship with Shotri, or which is how I mispronounce it. It's meant to be Scotry, which is the company in Beijing that I've been dealing with for more than 10 years now for electronics manufacturing. And so for large scale stuff, or for more complicated things that it just doesn't make sense for, I'll continue getting Scotry to do the assembly for me. And oh, actually, on that subject, in fact, let's go back to here. Let's do another little plug for them. I did an entire live stream a while ago. Oop. Scotry. No, not Shocky. Scott. I've got to find their site. Scotry Electronics Assembly Beijing. I don't even know what their site is. No, I do not want Schottky. I want... oh, this is terrible. Easy OEM is how they're... Easy OEM. Here we go. Oh, I was typing it. I was doing it with 2 T's. Scotry. Easy OEM. I'm going to put this in the chat as well because these folks are awesome. If you do want electronics assembly done in China, then talk to Alec at Scotry. Yeah, oh, and also I just found out fairly recently that after I did that live stream last year, early last year sometime, talking about Scotry and the different services that they've provided to Freetronics over the years, and if you look there, those are Freetronics boards with a little. You can see the yellow and blue hang tags attached to them, and that box there that'll have Freetronics boards in it as well. Yeah, so after I did that live stream where I was talking about Scotry and all the different services that they've provided me over the years, unknown to me, someone who watched that live stream, I'm not going to say who it is because there are commercial confidentiality issues here, got in touch with Scotry and got them to do some manufacturing, and had a whole bunch of boards made, and it all worked out well. They did a good job and got them back quickly, and they were all assembled perfectly. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. I found out afterwards. It was sometime later. I was talking to this person that I won't name because I don't want to disclose their business at the moment. Yeah, I was talking to them and they said, oh, by the way, these boards were done by Scotry. When they were showing them to me, I was like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so Alec took care of their manufacturing for them. Yeah, oh, Ross says, I've been using an Australian company called Entech for work stuff in Shenzhen, and I would not advise. The QA is deplorable. Entech, I've heard of Entech. I think that's a pretty big... it's a pretty well-known name. Andy has come along to the chat as well. Hi, brother, says Andy. Yeah. Oh, okay. Back to the reflow oven. Sion said, don't get an IN6. Yes, I know. You've had issues with the IN6 where it just doesn't heat up some days. It decides it's going to take a long weekend or something. But the RF530 also won't have the thermal mass to do lead-free very well. Too short of a heating length, too much zone-to-zone heat interference. Yeah, that's the difficulty with... Iggy said, the Andy? No, that's Andy Cowley. You're thinking of Andy Jelmy. So, yeah, reflow ovens. Who would have thought that heating would be so hard? I have a length issue as well. I think I may have mentioned this in the past. Yes, I know that Sion has had a length issue setting up in his factory as well. Stephen says heating isn't hard. Yeah, heating isn't hard. Yeah, uniform heating is hard. Exactly. Consistent, reproducible heating, following the correct profile is hard. And so, yes, Sion has been trying to jam machines into the fixed length of his factory while allowing space at the end for the mechanical work area. And that has been quite a challenge with getting short conveyors to join the machines without, taking up extra space. All of that sort of thing. Sion has been doing videos about that. So if you're interested in setting up factories, go and check out Unexpected Maker. So the length issue that I have is that I have, with the layout of this building, in fact, I'm going to take you off this view because I'm going to bring something up. Floorplanner.com. I'm going to show you what my problem is. Where do I get to my existing layouts? I think this is it. Yes, this one. So I'll bring this up and then I'll bring it back into your view so I can explain my length problem, which directly impacts the reflow oven. Opening, and 3D view, go! Go, go, gadget, 3D view. Alright, Alright. So, back to that view. Alright, let's see if we can zoom, whoop, not that much. And can we pan? Yes, we can pan a bit. Alright, now what we are looking at here, this little person right here sitting staring at these monitors pretty much in the middle of your view is me. So that's the position I'm at right now with the computer in front of me. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit without zooming in like a crazy person. Come on, oh, no, there we go. Okay, so that is looking over my head at where I am sitting right now with the my electronics workbench to the right and the big monitor up there with the CCTV cameras and things. There is a trolley to my left, which is, you can't see it, but it's just there at the moment. Right now it has a water cannon sitting on it. And then there is the big glass wall with the sliding doors, the monitors mounted across the wall, that's all in place, and the cleanish room beyond it. Now, here comes the problem. The problem for every single production line, and that is the distance from point A over here to point B over here. They like length. Production lines are long. So, this distance, according to the current plan, so the area that I am leasing in the factory, if we go zoom out a little bit, this big back wall here, that's the dividing line between my part of the factory and Lachlan's part of the factory. And there is the front wall. There's a big roller door here, big enough to put a truck through. And so the distance, the length I have available for the production line has a hard bound at this end, which is the glass wall going into the front office area, the lab zone. And so that can't move. That's kind of stuck now. And it has a semi-hard limit at the back end here. Now this is where there is some fudging that is possible, because what is on this wall doesn't actually exist right now. It's there for the purposes of laying out the plan. And Michael said production lines are long. I remember the first time a Camry flew over my head at Toyota Altona plant. Yeah. So yeah, what is actually on the other side of where this wall is This is basically the center line. If I go to, now I do have a plan that shows the overall layout of the factory, but what you're looking at here is the front half of the factory, and this line is across the center point, and there is actually that same area again behind that wall going all the way back over here. There is a whole other large part of the factory. And so what I've been talking to Lachlan about is the possibility of sneaking a little bit more space in at the end here to extend this line by a couple of meters. So at the moment, this is from this room available from wall to wall, I think it's around 9.5 meters long, give or take. Maybe a little bit more, like 9.7, 9.8. I can't remember exactly, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. And that is not quite enough length to really be comfortable. So ideally, to make it really comfortable, I would want about 14 meters. To sneak it in, I would like about 12. And I'm interested actually, Sion, in how long the space is that you are working with. I know that you've said it on videos in the past, and I just can't remember what the number is, but I think it's probably, it's somewhere in that ballpark. So at the moment, I'm at about 9.5 meters, and I really want to be out to 14, but I'm not going to get that far. Because on the other side of this wall, there are some constraints. Now, at the moment, there are a bunch of workbenches in this area here, behind my area, and the compromise of what we are thinking of doing is setting up some pallet racking. Oh, Gerald's here too. Hey, welcome, Gerald. Is setting up some pallet racking. How do I describe this? That will go on this side of that dividing line and go right up high and span almost that entire width. Like not the width of the room, but the width from this wall to almost across to here. So like the longest beams you can get for pallet racking without going to ridiculous custom stuff is about I think it's 4.8 or maybe 5.1 meters, 4.8 meters, something like that. So there would be pallet racking that would go all the way across here. And then the idea is that I would sneak the clean room in underneath the pallet racking. So the lower level of the pallet racking would just be left totally clear. The end rails would go up, or the end structures, and then there would be beams across at above head height, and that's where the pallet racking would start, that Lachlan would use for putting things up with the forklift. Although interestingly, it hadn't crossed my mind that the forklift wouldn't be able to get up there because the base supports need clearance underneath. Ah, okay. Interesting. All right, I'm going to ignore that little fly in the ointment for now and just continue describing the plan. So what would happen is that this room essentially would have a punch out that comes out the end for a couple of meters, and that would take me out to the 12-ish meter length, and then there would be storage above that, so the pallet racking would be, would go over that little punch out and be a place where Lachlan could use some high storage. So once it gets out to the 12-ish meter length, that then becomes more comfortable. And part of the complication here is that I have 3 pick and place machines. So the decision is, do I keep all 3 machines in the line, or do I have 2 machines on the line plus 1 that sits off to the side somewhere? And that could be workable. I'd really like to have all three on the line, but it just may not be possible. Austin said, multi-level production design with automatic conveyor and elevator. Yeah, I have actually thought of that. And in fact, Glenn, the guy I bought the machines from, had them stacked. These machines are actually stackable, amazingly. They are structurally incredibly strong. The chassis of these KOs is rock solid. And what he actually had a machine sitting on the floor and then another machine sitting on top of it. And because of the way the doors and things work, it is actually feasible. Now, from a vibration point of view, that's pretty damn horrible. But it would be possible to do a framing system where I could build like a steel frame that a second row of machines sits on, so it would be a double-decker production line. But that is a complication, because it means that some of the machines, one row of machines would be very low, so when you're working on them you've got to crouch down, and the other row of machines would be unnaturally high, so you'd probably need a stool to get up onto them. But it's not necessarily, yeah. Okay. A couple of things that have gone past in the chat that I'm just going to get back to for a second before it all disappears off the screen and it disappears out of my mind. So, who was it? Someone just brought up the self-heating PCBs. Oh, Ross said, oh, the self-heat PCBs are amazing. Silly idea, but very fun. And someone else mentioned that, yeah, Gerald said, yeah, self-soldering circuits by Carl Bageja. It was interesting. Yeah, so Carl does interesting stuff. If you're interested in electronics, you should follow Carl on Twitter. Yeah, there are some interesting projects that he does, and there was one just recently which was done some years ago actually by one of the people at Melbourne Hackerspace, where you make a PCB where you set some of the internal layers of the PCB to be a heating coil, and by running lots and lots of current through it, you can make the PCB get hot enough to reflow solder. So what happens is that you have a PCB that externally looks like a regular circuit board. It's just that it's got a couple of high current connections on it. Sorry, sneeze came on suddenly. So it's got a couple of extra high current connections on it. You put on solder paste, you put all the parts on it exactly as usual, but instead of putting it into a reflow oven, you connect power to the internal coil that is etched into the internal PCB layer, run power through it for a bit, the whole PCB gets hot enough that the solder paste reflows, and the PCB essentially is a self-soldering board. And yeah, it's a novel idea. So that was done by Andrew. I think it was Andrew at Melbourne Hackerspace who did it a few years ago. And he did a whole bunch of experiments with it, had it working. But I don't know if he actually posted anything about it. Like, I don't know if he talked about it publicly, but he certainly had it working. So it was interesting to see Carl do that as well, and post some info about it. So just skimming back down through the chat. That's right, Austin said multi-level production design with automatic conveyor / elevator. One of the, not quite the same thing. So there is stacking machines, but there is also transit. And there was, who was it? Someone in the chat just said U-turn. Yeah, Scott said U-turn. The thing is that when you need to do a direction change in a production line, it takes a lot of space. To have something that will take boards and then change their direction, that in itself takes room, and the total length of the line goes up as well. It's also technically kind of tricky. It's very tricky if you are trying to maintain accurate horizontal alignment. For example, if you wanted to take a board from one pick and place machine and then run it into another pick and place machine after doing a right angle turn or a U-turn or something, you can't just have the board traveling on a bent conveyor, because you need to align it accurately to the conveyor belt going into the next machine. So there are technical challenges there. And it's the sort of thing that if you were space constrained, you had money, and you were doing a really serious production facility where you had to get this right, yes, you could engineer your way around that problem. You could build some way of making the production line turn. And I've seen this done at in China. I've seen it done. What was the factory? I can't remember the name of it. I always go blank on it. But yeah, it's not unusual to bend electronics production lines, wrap them around a corner. It's just that I'm like just me. I'm just a hobbyist little person doing this at low scale, low budget, and trying to find a way to have more linear space, I think, is less of a challenge than trying to engineer something that does a U-turn or just a right angle or whatever. But one thing I did think about is something like a return line underneath the machines. So once everything has been done, now it turns out that this is not really going to help me in terms of the layout, but it's just something that crossed my mind. If, for example, I wanted to have the, let's just go back to this layout. So with solder paste being applied at this end, going through machines, and then reflow oven at the other end. So the exit at this end is reflowed boards, but a reflowed board is not a done board. That's a reflow board is just a board that then needs through-hole parts loaded and selective soldering or hand soldering done to it, and testing and washing and all of those sorts of things. So there are processes that have to be done after it comes out of the reflow at this end of the line. So the question then is, how do you get the boards to that next stage, which is going to be a lot of manual processing. It's really where it transitions from the automated production line part of it to the manual processing part of it. And one thing that I did think about was having it so that the boards come out of the reflow oven and then go down onto a conveyor belt that runs back underneath the machines all the way to this far end. So then there could be a desk in this corner, which is the start of the manual processing part of it, so putting in through-hole parts and those parts of the process. But then I decided that it's just not worth it. So what would happen is that the bare boards would start at this end, they'd be solder pasted, placed, reflowed, and then come back, and then end up back at the same end as they started. But that really doesn't gain anything. There's no benefit to that. So the idea with this layout is that it's a U shape. So it has the automated process coming along here, it comes out of the reflow oven, and then turns to the left here, and comes back down this side of the room and ends up at this end. This is the final destination for the boards. So they start here and they end here, almost where they started. But the automated part of the process through here, then they do a U-turn, end up in an in tray here for manual processing, so through-hole soldering, etc., and testing, and then come along here for ultrasonic cleaning and washing and drying, and then along here, and then packaging, and end up complete at this end. Oh, TNT's arrived as well. Yeah, oh, Scott says, rotary table after PNP machine, push across to return line, second rotary table, carry on to reflow and such. For that matter, any reason the boards have to be oriented the same way going into reflow? No, they don't. That is a very good point, Scott. So the orientation is critical up to the point where they exit the last pick and place machine. After that, who cares? Apart from width issues, if you're running very large panels, there will be limitations. Usually the maximum length of a panel that you can have is greater than the maximum width of a panel that you can have, but I'm not pushing the limit anyway. It's not as if I'm doing 400 mil wide panels or crazy things like that. The biggest things I do are, you know, little-ish panels. So it's yeah, that's not a problem. You are right that I wouldn't even have to reorient the boards. They could come out of the pick and place machine and then go sideways through the reflow oven. That would not matter. So maybe there is some PCBs by Lazy Susan, yes. Keith said, thinking of a sushi train now. Yeah, and Austin said, those restaurant trains are cool. Right. Sorry, I was just thrown because I just saw Stephen's comment. And it got my brain going off in a totally different direction, thinking about a whole bunch of different things. Stephen said, 1.2 meter long phased array radar panels, next product to come out of Superhouse. Yes, phased array radar. That would be an interesting thing to work on. Oh, Jamie, hello from Iowa, USA. Welcome. Gerald asked, where do you have your PCBs made? If you're talking about blank, like bare PCB fab, most of the time I get them done at JLC PCB. I've used many, many different fabricators over the years. What I should qualify that with is that answer is correct if we're talking about the bare boards that I order and then bring in here for assembly. So that's boards that I do for contracting clients where they might want me to make 50 or 100 of something. So small volume, and prototyping boards, and small runs that I do for Superhouse and Freetronics, things that I do assembly here. Generally JLC PCB. In the past I've also used all of the usual suspects. I used to use all PCB quite a bit. I used dirty PCBs in the past. There's but for bigger production, so for the boards that are done through Scottree in Beijing, and yes, I know, Beijing is at the opposite end of the country to Shenzhen, and it might seem strange that I'm using a company in Beijing when Shenzhen seems to be the center of the universe for electronics manufacturing. But yeah, there are good factories in Beijing as well. And the bare PCB company that we generally use for like larger scale production stuff, so when we're getting bigger volumes of boards made, is Gold, I think it's called Gold Phoenix. And I'm not even sure where they are. Let's see, Gold Phoenix PCB. They are somewhere more in the center of the country, I think. I can't remember their location. Gold Phoenix, it is these people here, goldphoenixpcb.com, and let's see, where are they? They are located near the Donghui Industrial Zone. Yes, but what city? What city? Come on. Where, what's... I can't remember. Contact us? About us? Come on. Where? Contact us. Canada office. No, I'm looking for the Chinese office. I didn't know they had a Canada office. Anyway, that's yeah. Gold Phoenix have generally been very good quality. They can produce. They're like one of the companies that can do bigger scale stuff and really good quality work. All right, where are we? Mitchell says, Sion's got some comments for JLC though. Yes, I know. Oh, Illuminator, you got here. Thanks for coming along to the chat. Okay, Dennis Rees, I will get back to your question in a second. If I remember, if that squirrel does not leave the building. Yes, I know. There is no, in everything, no company is perfect. No supplier is perfect. There are always problems. And I have definitely had issues with some boards from JLC. The issues that I have had has been the durability of the solder mask. And that is, in production, I haven't found it to be a problem. I've only found it to be an issue if I'm doing a lot of rework on a board. Like sometimes if I have a prototype and I've got to do some, like putting parts on, taking them off, changing them around, cutting tracks and all of that sort of thing. Once the board has been abused a little bit, the solder mask tends to come off a bit and expose some of the copper underneath. That may be a function also of the color that is chosen for the solder mask, because there are different types of paint that are used. And I almost always pick blue solder mask. I don't know why. It just seems like a nice color. Jezza, thank you for the super chat. Jezza said, no idea what you're talking about, but love your lifelong enthusiasm. More importantly, the beard, very regal. Please give us beard maintenance tips. Jezza, it's too long since I've seen you. For those of you who don't know, Jez Kemp and I went to school together. And yes. What's beat? Oh, it's my phone is going ding. I don't know what that is. I'm going to ignore notifications for now. It is really good to see you here in the chat. Yeah, and Jeremy's job now is misleading young minds. No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's leading them down the good path. Oh, Henrik. Hey from Denmark. Yes. Which reminds me. Oh, squirrels. A couple of live streams ago, I was talking about getting a tattoo on my arm just over the RFID chip, like where it's located. And I was thinking all along the lines of some kind of tattoo that would represent communication or signal strength or RFID or something like that. And the reason, Henrik, that your hello from Denmark has brought this back into my mind is that I've kind of changed my mind about what I want. I'm going to go for a Norse rune directly over it. And I'm not even sure how to pronounce this. The Web of Weird. It's a symbol that represents connection, which I think is kind of a a funny reference. Hang on, I'm going to find it. Weird. I'm going to find a picture of it. Here we go. So it is this sort of symbol. And the the matrix of fate, which seems kind of appropriate. And the explanation is here. It's an interwoven symbol that is representative of the complexities of the fates. It's a representation of the past, present, and future. For the Vikings, the Web of Weird was a reminder that their deeds not only affect the present, but the future as well. So it's the other explanation I've read is that the actions of the past have brought us to the present. The actions of the present will take us to the future. It's about how everything is connected. And I thought that would be kind of a funny thing. And as Mike points out, it kind of looks like an antenna. Yeah. So there are multiple layers of this. The meaning of the symbol as being connection, which could represent RFID. It kind of looks like an antenna, and etc. So I just, in the last couple of days, I've been thinking about this, and I think that I'm going to get that over the location of my RFID chip. Any mules? Said what? No. Yeah, squirrel with the signal strength brackets around it. No. Maybe I should get a squirrel as well, but yeah, another time. We'll see. I might get a tattoo here, just over the RFID tag, and then decide to keep going and keep going. Who knows? Where was I? Okay, so I've been talking for an hour and I have no idea what I've been talking about. Oh, Scott says, Shenzhen, I said earlier that Shenzhen is the center of the universe for electronics manufacturing, and Scott said, Shenzhen is the center of the universe for messed up shipping. It's actually been surprisingly good recently. A couple of people have mentioned this to me. Let's see, I'm going to pull up something else. Once again, off screen, I am pulling up a spreadsheet because I want to check on something. Industrial camera, where are we? 10, that's, yeah, and it's a good thing I did this because it reminds me of something else. Alright, this is, I'm going to bring up into view a spreadsheet. This is my order tracking spreadsheet that I use when I'm placing orders with AliExpress and other places. I do this for a few reasons. One is because I typically have so many orders in place that I actually forget what I've ordered. Many times in the past, I have ordered some parts and then forgotten that I've ordered them, and then ordered them again before the first order arrived, and then ended up with multiple sets of things. That's what the ADHD brain does to you. So I live by lists, and this is one of my many lists. This is a living list which records things that I have ordered, all the things I've ordered on AliExpress and other places, and it tracks the quantity that I've ordered. These lines up the top are like a staging area. Let's zoom this in a little bit. Yeah, it's like a staging area. So these are things that I haven't actually ordered yet, but it's things that I've put there for future reference, and some of them have been sitting there for a long time. So, for example, you can see the most recent thing I ordered was an OV9712 based USB industrial camera, and that is to replace the camera that I currently have in one of the KO pick and place machines. So right now I've got a USB webcam that has been decased and mounted in the bottom of the KO to replace the original camera that was in there, and it has some limitations. I won't go into right now, that's a whole other squirrel like a chase. But what I've got is the quantity of that particular thing that I've ordered, how much they were each, what the total was, GST paid, and this is cost of goods sold. So this is the percentage of that purchase which is going towards cost of goods sold for tax purposes, which then gives an R&D value, and a cost of goods sold value, the date that I ordered it, and the date that it arrived, and there is a calculation field here which says how many days that delta is, and whether I've received it or not, and the address to click on to go back and get more of that same thing. Oh, look at that. So that is the little ELP camera that I ordered. And so from here, what I can do is go back if I ever need, like you can see, for example, that I ordered 300 2.1mm DC sockets, and they cost, that's actually a surprising amount, 26 cents each. Price on those has gone up a little bit in recent years. So for 300 of them, it cost me $77, and it has arrived, and it took 15 days to arrive. But this is the point of bringing this back up. Some of these numbers are shockingly low, like the transit days. Check this out. So I ordered some solder. This is leaded. It's just a like a 500 gram. In fact, it's right here. This is it. I ordered that 19th of December. So this was just before Christmas, so over the Christmas period. It arrived between Christmas and New Year, 10 days in transit, and that was from China. And I also ordered these ESP32, SP Room 32 modules, ordered 150 of them. They arrived in 10 days, once again from China. There are a couple here that were slower, 23 and 25 days for these screw terminals. But then back here, 15 days, so just over 2 weeks for these automotive relays. And I should point out, and here you can see one that's 15 days for those PCB mount sockets. This one, so tact switches, 4x4x2mm copperhead tact switches. I ordered 1,000 of them, and they arrived in 8 days from China. Now, I should point out that I am not paying for DHL shipping or expedited anything on this. This is like China Post shipping. It's whatever the default is on AliExpress, the cheap option, and it got here in 8 days, 1,000 tact switches. So the experience that I've had, and I can quantify this because I've got it all in this spreadsheet, I track everything. The experience that I've had is that in recent times, shipping from China has been back to the sort of level, back to the speed that it was pre-COVID. It seems to be really, really good. And when we're using things like the cost of shipping has definitely gone up. The price of products has gone up in order to offset some of that shipping cost, I think. And when you select different shipping methods, the shipping costs are higher. So if you look at, for example, ordering 150 of these Vroom 32 modules, this cost of what I pay here is including the shipping. So $3.08 per module was what I paid for that. The same thing a couple of years ago would have been less than that because the shipping component would be less. But nevertheless, stuff is arriving, and it's arriving quickly. This is an exception. I ordered 300 electrolytic capacitors. We are now 45 days since I ordered, and they haven't arrived. So that may actually just end up being a no-show. I might have to dispute that on AliExpress and get my money back on that one. But a little while ago, something taking 45 days was normal, and now something taking 45 days gets my attention because it's so much longer than other orders. So if I go back to, where are we? We're talking about February 2022 here. Yeah, some of these aren't too bad, but you can see that there are transit times here of 33 days, 20 days, 20 days, 23, 20. There are some here at just over 2 weeks. There's 33 days, 23, 28. There's a really quick one there. Don't know how that arrived so quickly. But there are, yeah, the transit times were a bit longer. And now it's much more usual for it to be 9 days, 10 days. There's a long one, 31, 8 days, 15 days. These ones were longer, 10 days. It just feels quicker than it was a year or two ago. Yeah. Oh, Michael says things that might take a month by themselves take 10 days when AliExpress combines. That's the other thing that's been happening recently. I didn't see this happening at all until probably a year ago. Because I've got so many orders in flight. Well, at the moment I don't have that many. I've only got these 4 plus this one that hasn't arrived. Oh, hang on. This rework station, that arrived. I forgot to mark that off. What day did it arrive? It was last Wednesday, I think. So it would have been on the 18th. So that arrived 18th of January. So that took 13 days. Yeah, I ordered another hot air rework station because I wanted to set one up for Tom's bench. Oh, and the extended pin headers, they've arrived too. I'll have to look back at the day they actually arrived because I've got to update my spreadsheet. So that 24 is not accurate. That actually arrived before these, probably somewhere around, I think it was probably around the 16th of January. So 18 days for those to arrive. But anyway, getting back to the point of this, yes, if you order, if there are a few orders from AliExpress, sometimes you'll get them all in one bag. There have been a few times now where I've received a big package and you open it up and then inside it there are other smaller packages. So they're doing bundled shipping, which is pretty smart. It's a nice logistical optimization. Yes. Oh, Gavin says, same experience as recently. Seems buying the above $7 with fast shipping for the items hyperspeeds the shipment. Yeah. Oh, Iggy says, sorry, got to run. Have a good one. Yes, you too. And I will talk to you soon, Iggy. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Yes. No, there was stuff back in the chat. I can feel that there's going to be a sneeze coming on. Yes, there was stuff back in the chat that I missed. Dentistries said my question. Yes, Dentistries, I'm getting back to it. Here we go. Dentistry's question was, how do you advertise yourself when doing PCB design for clients? How do they find you, etc.? All right, that is a good one. So a little bit of context in terms of how I survive day to day, what I actually do. Why do I get up in the morning? What I do is a combination of product sales and consulting. And when COVID started, the product sales, so that's Freetronics and Superhouse product sales, pretty much took a dive when there was so much, excuse me, so much uncertainty around. Hang on, I've got a cough. Okay, there was so much uncertainty around, and people didn't want to spend their discretionary income on things. The product sales really dropped off initially. Like at the start of COVID, it was like someone flicked a switch and no one was buying anything anymore. Now it has recovered, and but it was just like a knee-jerk reaction when everybody was so uncertain about the future of the world and commerce. People just stopped spending money unless they had to, and then it slowly, returned to some extent to people getting on with life and buying things because they want them, and not sticking to just the essentials. So when that initial thing happened, I really put a lot more focus into doing consulting work. And so I have a number of consulting clients. And the current arrangement is that I have 4 ongoing clients that I have been doing work with for all of them for several years now. And probably the way to describe it is that it's like I'm an external member of their internal team. And in each of these cases, they are a smallish local business that is doing that have their own products and then sell either, like they develop their products and then they sell wholesale, or they sell retail, or are in like the development stage and haven't actually gone to market yet. So there is a range. A couple of them are very definitely in the market. Product is shipping. It's an ongoing cash positive concern. And a couple of them are earlier on, more like product development, R&D sort of stage. And so the way I work with them is they have their own industry expertise. They have their networks of suppliers and customers, and they have a vision for the product that they want to bring to market. And they don't want to hire someone internally to be, to do full-time product development, and they use me as an external contractor to work on particular things. So that could be new features they want added to an existing product, or working on putting together a prototype for a new product, or taking a prototype to the next stage and doing pre-production work and then through to production work, etc. And I do both the hardware side of things and also software and firmware. So in the case of, I won't go into too much detail, but it varies. Some of the clients I am 100% of their technical resource in terms of product development, and some I am an extra resource who works with their internal people. So in the case of the water truck company, for example, they have internal engineers who work on the product, but they don't work on the electronics part of it or the software side of it, because that part they handball to me. And then I work effectively almost like an employee, like a part-time employee, but physically located outside of their office. So I'm in constant contact and talking about how things are going and changes and things that they want done. But it means that they're not paying my regular wage. If they don't need anything done, they're not paying me. And when they do need things done, then they pay me. And because my work is spread across a few clients in that sort of situation, it means that for me, it evens out. There's always something that I can be doing. It can be a little bit of a balancing act, because each one of them, of course, wants things done quickly. When they have something that comes up, they want it done. They don't want to be at the back of the queue waiting for me to be ready in a few weeks to get to it. So I kind of jump around between them and do a bit for one client and a bit for another client, which, to the way my brain works, actually works very, very well. I go through cycles where I will be hyper-focused on one client. My brain will be in that space, and I will have all of the domain information in my head for that particular project. And of course, context switching has cost associated with it, time cost, mental cost, etc. So I don't want to be constantly context switching, but because of my my tendency to be wanting to do new and interesting things and be mentally stimulated all the time, that works out pretty well, because I can work for one client, do a bunch of stuff, be really focused, and then I go to a new client, not a new client, I mean one of my other existing clients, and work on something that they've wanted done. And they might have said, oh, we've got this thing we want done, how about we add this feature to the firmware, we need to make these changes. They don't necessarily need it tomorrow, they might want it in 2 weeks' time. So I'll finish off whatever I'm doing for the client that is currently top of my mind, and then when the time comes, I've got something else interesting to jump over to, and then I start working on this feature development for the other client that had been in touch. So that's kind of what my life is like. It's a little bit of product development for my own side of things like Superhouse and Freetronics, but that is really, really minor. I put very little time into that these days. I ship orders for existing products, but I really haven't done very much product development. And a large part of that is because it's just not economically viable for me. The amount that I can make by hour working for contracting clients is so much more than I can make doing product development for myself. Because if I might spend a week working on a product, that product might sell for $30, and then I might sell 20 of them in the following year. You know, it's not like I'm ever going to make much money out of the things that I do for Superhouse. It takes so much time to do the development of those projects and then get them to the point where they are in retail packaging, ready to send off to a client or to a customer. Someone places an order, I'll put them up on the website, and weeks will go by and I haven't sold a single one of them. So it kind of discourages me from putting time into doing those Superhouse and Freetronics projects, but that's just the way it is. And so I know this has been a very, very long question. So Josh, I think it was Josh who asked the question in the first place. The fundamental question was, how do I get my clients? And I don't advertise. Part of the reason for giving you all of this backstory is that I kind of don't want more clients, because what I have now, the amount of work that I have now is it's more than I could do. One client, for example, I'm not going to say which one or anything. One client, for example, but it's one that's in an earlier stage. It's R&D leading to field trials sort of stage. It's not at production stage yet. I am very aware that I am the bottleneck that is slowing down that client from getting to market, because I need to be spending more time on their project and getting it ready to be able to actually go out there in the field and do the field testing, so that it can then go to the next stage of pre-production and then manufacturing. And if I take on more clients, what it will do is hamper my ability to adequately service my existing clients. So I'm really at that sweet spot right now where I have enough work that I could put all of my hours into my existing clients, because I'm generally moving along with their projects and responding to their requests, but I could be doing it faster. I could be doing more for all of them. And if I lost one of those clients, which I hope I don't, I could put more time into the others and maybe bring on a new client to balance things back out again. It wouldn't be a disaster to lose any one client in particular, because the slack would be taken up by the time that I would then just reallocate to my other existing clients. But it's also a treadmill. And this is something that is it's a challenge faced by anyone that does consulting work, which is that when you are selling your time, if you're not selling your time, you're not making money. And it means that for things like, if I want to take a break, I pretty much can't. Like, not a real extended break. Because, not that it would be a real problem for my clients. It would be, so the way the calculation goes in my own head, if I wanted to go away for a month, let's use a fairly extreme example. Say I wanted to go back to Estonia and hang out there for a month and visit other parts of Europe and have a nice time, which is something I would really like to do. I could queue that up with my clients and they would all be okay. Like, things could be put in place where if I'm not around for a month, they're not going to be in trouble. It'll be okay. But it also means that I then get zero income for that month because I wouldn't be billing out. So the cost is not just the out-of-pocket expense of going and doing that trip. It is also the cost of not having the income for that month. And that is the conundrum that anyone that does contracting or consulting type work faces. Anytime that you're not working, you're not making money. And that is where things like product sales can be really attractive, because it gives you that that baseline where the success of the business is not dependent on you being physically present and putting in the hours. And I really need to give more thought to balancing that and having a work situation that is more of an even split between product sales and consulting, where the consulting brings in big dollars in terms of hourly rate, because the rate that I charge per hour is, well, yeah, it's pretty reasonable. I'll just say that, as in reasonable from my point of view. Setting the hourly rate is a challenge. It has to be high enough to be worthwhile for me. It has to be low enough that it is economically viable for the client. And it's yeah, okay, I won't get into that. All right, so back to Josh's question. If I think back to how I gained the clients that I have, it is very much through word of mouth. I'm just thinking about them. One of them came about because of someone that I've known for about 10 years, give or take, who needed someone to come in and take over from a previous engineer who could no longer work on it, who was also someone that I knew, by the way. Yeah, so the previous engineer had got a full-time job that meant that he could no longer continue doing the contract work for this particular client, and somehow the two of them decided that I would be the person to come in and replace him. So we had a chat, and that's how I ended up with that particular contracting job. And another one was word of mouth through my brother-in-law, and another one is someone that I've known for nearly 20 years in different contexts, and I'd worked with him in the past, and then this particular project he needed some work done on, and we were chatting one day, and I said, hey, I can help you with that, and that's how we've been working together ever since. So it's been very much word of mouth, and part of it has been through, okay, there is a saying that I heard, not really a saying, I think it was in a book I read at some point, I don't remember. A thing that I noticed was, and I'm going to butcher this, the basic premise was, in a work context, I think this was talking about, it was, would things be harder or easier if you were famous? And the general premise was, whatever it is that you want to set out to achieve, or what you want to do, is going to be easier if you are famous. So it's about having a profile and being visible. And this is something that I've worked at for a very long time. It started with really early days of LinuxConf, back in 2002 when I went to my first linux.conf.au in Brisbane, and first time I met so many people who I'm still friends with today. And there was the Debian MiniConf, which James Bromberger ran that year, but he was then moving to England and wouldn't be able to run it the following year. And so when I went along to that conference, I very consciously thought, I want to build a profile within this community because that will then lead to opportunities. Now that sounds very mercenary, but that's the way I was thinking. So when James was leaving Australia and said, hey, does anybody want to organise the Debian MiniConf next year for 2003? I said, hey, I'll do it. And it was partly a way of being able to contribute back to that community because the open source community had done so much for me. And also partly a way of being the person at the front of the room. And by being that person, it means that you become the one that others go to for questions, for connections, for whatever it is that happens to come up, because you become associated with that field or with that that particular expertise. And in my case, totally unwarranted. You can end up becoming associated with something, being representative of that thing without necessarily having the real skills and credentials. And I had no idea what I was doing. Certainly in those early days, I just volunteered because it would be a helpful thing to do. There was no one else to run that MiniConf, and I figured it out. But by doing that, after doing that in 2003, and then and I also volunteered to talk at the local PHP user group here in Melbourne. That was a matter of practicing my presentation skills so that when opportunities came up to be able to present, I would be able to do it in an effective way. I was deliberately setting out to become better at presenting, and I was terrible when I started. I've got a bit better, but it's been conscious. It's not just a matter of, for a lot of people who present at technical events, it's because they have worked on a particular project, that's their area of interest, and then the opportunity comes up and they want to be able to, and then they propose a talk or whatever, and then they talk about it. But for me, a lot of the focus was becoming a good presenter, regardless of the subject matter. It was really thinking about the craft of how you do presentation and engage with the audience, and how you tell a good story. Sorry, Josh, I'm off the subject here, but I'll get back to it. How you tell a good story. So I very deliberately went off and did speaker training, and I basically took every opportunity that I could to speak at user groups and at conferences. I just submitted to everything and got lots and lots of practice. So I've now done, last time I checked, I think it was around 120 conference talks, and on a really wide variety of subjects. And that's just a matter of very deliberately thinking, I want to be able to present things. And then that becomes a useful skill, because this is tying into what I was saying before. By being visible, you become the person that people think of when that particular subject comes up. You become associated with that area of expertise. And there have been times, for example, that I've been able to put people in touch with other people I know for things like job referrals. I know that there are a few people that have got jobs because they've said to me, hey, I'm looking for a job, and I've thought, hey, they would fit in like with this person over there, you should go and talk to them. And then it's ended up working out. People have got jobs. Not because I am the expert in that area, it's just because I try to be visible, I try to talk to as many people as possible, and provide the connections between them, which is not something that has ever really come naturally to me. I'm an introvert. Energy is sucked from me by interacting with people in that way. I need to go back and recharge and build up my energy reserves again before I can do something like go out and engage with a whole lot of people at a conference. I like spending quiet time and probably just with one or two people, like hanging out with someone and talking about things. But going out into social situations with many people, I tend to withdraw from that sort of thing. But I work hard at being effective in those situations and being able to connect other people with each other. And getting back to Josh's original question, which is how do I get clients, I think that it's come about as a side effect or as a consequence of the fact that I have been consciously doing that for so many years. So 20 plus years of trying to be visible, which sounds very egotistical. I do worry that it very much can cross over into self-promotion and having that whole, hey, look at me sort of approach to things. But I try not to cross into that territory. I try to keep it as, I am interested. I want to learn more. And the best way to learn more is by meeting people and listening to them. Because people are interesting. There are so many smart people around who know vastly more than me about pretty much every single topic. And the more that you can connect with people and just like absorb what it is that they have to offer, the more you will build bonds with people and community connections and learn. And then it's by, yeah, I'm going to be really bad at this, but there is another saying that, how does it go? It's something like, luck is the consequence of preparation. It's about being, not just waiting for things to happen, but putting in the groundwork to be in the right place for things to happen, so that when they happen, you're ready to take advantage of it. And taking advantage of it sounds like, once again, it's a very mercenary sort of approach. But it's more like, if you have not prepared yourself and an opportunity comes up, you may not be able to chase that opportunity. You have to be thinking about what things might happen, what things might come across your path. What do I need to do now in order to be ready for those things to happen? And the funny thing is, this kind of comes back to that Norse rune that I was showing you earlier. It's about the connectedness of the past to the present and the present to the future. The things that we are doing now are laying the groundwork for the future. So if the future that you want is to be doing contracting work and consulting to companies to do product development and the sorts of things that I do, then the things you need to do in the present to allow that are building those connections and being visible in the places that those people are going to be, so that when they have that thing come up in their mind and they start thinking about, hey, who can we get to do this? Hey, I know, Josh can help me with that because I've seen him do these projects. And this is really where this is, sorry, I've just seen a couple of things in the chat that have derailed me mentally. Yeah, okay, let's derail. I just saw a couple of comments about LCA, because I was talking about LCA a moment ago. So Michael said, RIP LCA from an LCA ghost. Yeah, I don't really see LCA as being dead. So the very brief backstory is that LinuxConf AU has not run an in-person event the last couple of years because of COVID restrictions, and there was no pitch to run an LCA 2023. So a number of people who it's a Venn diagram thing. The people are mostly on the Linux Australia committee decided that what they would do is run a placeholder event called Everything Open, and it's a slightly shorter event. It's 3 days instead of 5 days. It's going to be here in Melbourne at the exhibition centre, so at Jeff's shed, and it's slightly broader than Linux. It's more of an open, well, the name is Open Everything. The idea, I think, is to bring in related communities like open data and open AI, whatever, I don't know exactly, open hardware, all these different things. But the goal is that in future there will be a LinuxConf AU. And I think part of it is, I may be misrepresenting them, I hope I'm not. I think part of the reason for naming this one Everything Open instead of naming it LinuxConf AU is that the way it's being done, the way it's being put together is a deviation from the normal process of going out to tender, or not really tender, asking for pitches and then have teams compete to run the next conference. In this particular case, it is a way of running an event and making sure that something will happen so that the dream of LinuxConf AU can live on and then rise again in the future. So I really hope that there is going to be an LCA 2024. It may end up still being called Everything Open. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen from a branding point of view. But in some ways, Everything Open is like a mini LCA that has not gone through the whole pitch process. It's a way of just saying, nobody else is going to do anything, so let's just get in there and do it ourselves in the classic open source sort of way. Where are we? Oh, Peter said 23 minutes, but that was a while ago. It's less than that now. There were, oh, I saw someone else. Sorry, I've got to, oh yeah, there it is. This is the saying, what was it? The saying I said before, which was, lucky is what happens to the prepared. Yeah, TNT Watcher said, fortune favors the prepared. And where was it? Oh yeah, Michael said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So Alistair, welcome, thanks for coming along. It's good to see you here. I haven't seen you in the chat for a little while. Alistair said, late edition, spruiking Everything Open. Well, I wasn't really, but I was getting to it. Yeah. Yeah, Austin said, I wish I had the money. I'd love to travel and give a talk and meet people. Yes. Sarah said, you're on the money about Everything Open. Thank you, Sarah. Good to see you here in the chat as well. And as Michael said, Sarah probably heard LCA mentioned and joined the chat telepathically. Sarah has superpowers. Okay. Well, I am glad that. Thank you, Sarah, for confirming that my assessment of the characterization of Everything Open is correct. I don't want to be representing it. And for those of you who don't know, Sarah is very intimately involved with that whole process. So I'm glad that I didn't mess that up. Thank you for letting me know. Peter said, I'd love to attend conferences if it wasn't for the extensive pollution conferences and stuff causes. Yeah, that's true. There are so many factors now. And just a little bit back, where was it? Yeah, that comment I read out a moment ago, Austin saying, I wish I had the money, I'd love to travel and give a talk and meet people. Yeah, the world is tricky right now. there are challenges, and those challenges are part of the reason why LCA has not happened in its usual form the last couple of years, and why we've ended up in this situation with everything open taking its place, at least for now. Oh, Sarah said, we would love to hear you all talk to keep the spirit of LCA going. Yeah. Oh, Michael said she'd hunt you down if you got it wrong. Yes. Yeah. I don't need Sarah coming after me. Now, so to Austin's challenge of money to travel and events to talk at, that has definitely been a thing. What I recommend, the era of global conferences seems to have changed significantly in post-COVID times. Well, I can't say post-COVID because we're not post-COVID. We are in COVID times. It's changed since pre-COVID times. So the idea of jumping on a plane and going to the US for a conference now is totally different to what it was a few years ago. And that is assuming that you have the money to pay for it, because that is an expensive exercise. Going to something like OzCon, so I've spoken at OzCon a few times in the US, and I've spoken at Linux Target in Germany and other conferences around the place. It's not easy and it's not cheap to get to those places from Australia. So yes, Austin, I understand the challenges. It's, even though you are in a location that is much better in terms of getting to events than my location here in Australia, the cost of getting to things is a real challenge. So the way I dealt with that is looking for small local things. It really doesn't have to be a big international conference with thousands of people. If you can find some kind of a local user group like a hackerspace, typically hackerspaces are not the sort of places that you would do presentations, although that can happen. It's really about being seen within a community and engaging with other people in that community. So one of the other things that really helped me and that opened doors was writing books. Now that is a big challenge. It's an enormous effort to do that. The time that goes into writing a book is way more than you would think it is, the commitment that's required. And the financial payoff is much less than you would expect. So 2 of my books have actually been category bestsellers on Amazon. So they're not, so this is to give it context, this is not intended to be a brag session. 2 of the books that I've written have sold enough quantity, like they've gone through multiple editions and many printings back when printings were a thing, when it wasn't all print on demand. And even that did not really bring me in a lot of money. Certainly not enough to cover the time that put into writing them. But it's another one of those things where I was thinking, what can I do that will put me at the front of the room where other people pay attention, and then I can engage with them. It's a way of opening doors and getting into the conversation so that then when people do have, and in fact that is how I ended up working on the ArduSat project. When I got in touch with the folk at ArduSat, I was wanting to help with doing the payload design for that satellite, and I got in touch and basically pitched myself, and it turns out that the people at ArduSat already knew who I was because they had a copy of Practical Arduino, and they'd been using it. So I got a message back from one of them saying, hey, we have a copy of your book and we've been using it as a reference. And that basically was like the key that opened the door and got me in on that project. So I suppose as a generalization, addressing this whole question of how do I get my clients, how do I get contracting clients, how can you open doors and get new opportunities? In a very general sense, the mindset is thinking about how can you be the person at the front of the room? And I don't necessarily mean literally, physically. I mean in terms of being someone that people know within your area of interest. It could be through writing books, it could be through doing conference presentations, it could be through being active in an online chat community like on Discord. It could be through doing videos, like edited videos, or it could be through doing live streams. What else? Lots of things. You could make a podcast. Making a podcast is something that I've been thinking about a lot over the years. I've wanted to do a podcast for so long, and it's just an extra thing. It's too much. If I was going to do it, I would really want to do it with someone else, and I haven't really thought of someone who could be a co-host or whatever and talk about something. But it's all about connectivity. Coming back to the theme of today, the theme of the live stream, connection. The actions of the past have brought us to the present. The actions of the present will take us to our future. So think about the things you are doing now and how it's setting you up for the future that you want. Yeah, Amy said this is basically a podcast. Yeah, not really in the sense that it would make sense of listening to it as purely audio though. Where are we? Oh, Alistair said, John, I'd be keen on co-hosting. Cool. Yeah. What could we talk about, Alistair? Let's do a podcast about something. I don't know what we would talk about. There are so many different subjects. There was a couple of years ago, I had a conversation with a friend who works in space science about doing a space-related podcast. And we sort of just mentioned it in passing and then, of course, didn't follow up on it because there's too much to do. Austin said, I'll be down for co-hosting too. Cool. But once again, what's the subject? Do we talk about home automation or space technology, or I don't know. One thing I would be interested in doing is a lot more coverage of assistive technology as well. But I am very wary of doing something like that when it would feel kind of like appropriation. Even though I've been working in that space with Chris and Nick for so many years and I've done many assistive tech projects, I really do not want to be the person coming in from outside the community, talking about it and saying, these are the solutions to your problems. For something like that to be authentic, it really needs to come from the voice of a person who lives it every day. So I do not feel comfortable, even though I would love to do it, I do not feel comfortable with the idea of doing something like a podcast or even videos about assistive technology, because it feels like I would be speaking for other people instead of having those people speak for themselves. Yeah. Oh, Ross said assistive technology with someone like Ben Heck, who does the controller mods with the rotating cast of people who live it, would be cool. Yep. And there is also the controller project. The controller project. I'm just going to find this because it is really cool. And I've gone blank on the name of the guy who does this. Oh, come on. Caleb, that's right. Here we go. So this is another cool thing. I'm going to chuck this up on screen in just a second. So Caleb does these really cool projects. Caleb is someone else you should follow on Twitter if you don't. So this is modifications for gamers with physical disabilities, and it started out for him 3D printing some attachments to go onto a game controller to make it easier for someone to press the buttons, because game controllers require you to put your fingers in very specific locations to use the controls, and if you can't use your hands in that way, then that makes it hard to play games. So quite some years ago he started off by 3D printing some things that attach to an existing controller to extend the buttons and make it easier for someone that he knew to use the controller, and it sort of just grew from there. So now he does things like request a mod. If you want a modification, you can say, I have this particular controller and I need it modified in this way. And then there are people who donate and volunteer to actually make the mods. And then, so say, look, PlayStation, I'm just going to pick one here. So there are all these modifications for the PlayStation controller. So this is the click helper. It's a ring that goes around the joystick and gives you a different way of clicking the joystick in if you can't use the click in function. And here is a one-handed modification. So it brings the right hand controls across to the left. So with your left hand you can use the normal D-pad here, and you can also press these buttons and it activates the buttons over on the other side. And it's symmetrical. You can 3D print these parts in a mirrored configuration and then use it as a single-handed right-hand controller. So one-handed DualSense. So anyway, this is a really cool project, and I think Caleb would be a good person. So he's also on YouTube. Where is it? I don't do controller. YouTube channel. Yeah, the Controller Project has its own YouTube channel, and this is Caleb. I'm going to chuck this in there because this is cool. And it definitely deserves more exposure. Yeah, you can see Caleb there talking about a couple of his projects. So doing something like a podcast with yeah, I'm subscribed. Phew. How does the Controller Project only have 304 subscribers? That's terrible. Everybody go and subscribe to the Controller Project. So yeah, doing a podcast about assistive tech with Caleb would be pretty awesome as well, although Caleb has no idea who I am. I've been following his work for years, but yeah, that would be cool. Oh yes, AB said accessibility is for everyone. Yep, that is true. Oh, interesting. So Imogen said, I know you mentioned your struggles with introversy. I've never actually heard it put that way, introversy. I like that word. I also struggle with big crowds and stuff, being an introvert myself. Could be a great topic for a podcast to discuss. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and then Imogen said, I've heard of Caleb's work before, bloody brilliant. I think assistive tech that is actually designed for and with people who have accessibility issues is great. That is 100% the key. It is absolutely about about people representing themselves. And not having things done to them or for them without their input, because often that does not have the beneficial effect that people think it is. That's something that I have learned over the years. It's the whole white savior trope, which I'm so conscious of now. I see it everywhere. Once it was pointed out to me, I became very aware of that pattern of behavior, and I see it so much now in movies and things. The whole idea of some poor person who needs to be saved and then someone else comes in and saves them. And yeah, it can be very disempowering. So we need to listen to, and I'm not saying that, I don't mean that in the sense that we shouldn't be helping people. We should definitely be helping people as much as we are capable of doing, but not to the extent that it becomes us and pushing our solution and our approach on people. It should always be in support of the person that you're helping and enabling or providing them with things to achieve what they want. I just saw Michael is just said, is Pete not paying attention? Yeah, it's now 12:01. Yeah. Which means that it is lunchtime. Now, what else have I missed in the chat? Probably lots. I miss so much in the chat every time. I'd be lucky to actually see like 20%. Hang on, my phone is ringing. Why is it ringing? Oh, it was Steve. I'll have to call him back. He doesn't watch my live stream, so he doesn't know that I'm on a stream. Oh, AB said, see also the disability dongle concept. I haven't heard of that term before, but I am going to check that out. And I am going to wrap it up. I actually did have a few things I wanted to talk about today. Haven't got to a single one of them. I've got stuff sitting here on the bench with the camera ready to show you some things that just arrived, and I'm not even going to talk about them. That can be a tease for the future. Peter, yes, Peter is still on the case. It's 12:02. So I don't know. It's kind of felt like an interesting conversation today, and thank you to everyone in the chat for your input. There have been some very interesting points made, and I don't know what to say. It's felt good talking to you. It'll be Steve again. Oh no, it's Peter. Peter, hang on. I'm gonna answer Peter's call. Yes, is this the lunch police? Okay, I am going to wrap it up. Bye. See, that's what happens when I don't put my phone on silent. Okay. That was Peter phoning me to tell me to wrap up the stream. One day I should give him remote control of this button that ends the stream, and then he can just enforce it. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye to you all, and I will talk to you all next week. And I hope you have had a good weekend, and I hope you have a fantastic week this week. So, go and build something awesome. Where's this button? There. Bye.